take all the shoulds, all the noise, all the everything that gets piled onto us, and we have that moment connection with ourselves is bringing the joy. Because the disappointment for me from my journey in my 20s, say, was about looking for joy outside of myself.
Hey, I'm Ronja Sakata, founder of the Joy Academy and Queen of Joy. That's how my friends call me. It's so important to me that my life is full of joy and that I enjoy every moment, because I know how fast it could be over. We can do so many things to bring joy in our lives, to create joy, and that's what this podcast is all about. I talk with people and they tell me how they bring joy to their everyday life and how they create a life full of joy. So let's dive right in, and please tell me after the episode what your takeaway is from this talk. Welcome to another episode of the Let's Create Joy podcast with Katy Henry. I'm so happy to have you here. And there are sirens going by. Let's start, as always. Who are you? What do you do? And then what's most interesting, how do you create joy for your everyday life? And what brings you joy?
Ooh, right, I may forget one of those, but hello, and thank you so much for having me here. It's really wonderful to come and speak. So I'm Katy Henry. I am based in the UK, and what I do is really interesting because I have changed a little over the last couple of years. So I am a 5-element acupuncture practitioner and have been for 20 years. I have a natural healthcare centre in the Midlands, which actually I have a team who run that, and it's brilliant. It's multidisciplinary. And I've just taken a couple of years off sabbatical. So I've had lots of big life changes. And I went off in a motorhome for a few months just to give myself some space. And I'm coming back, and I'm just coming back in to do some work. So I've created a online course called it's Activating Advances, the business that I've got, and it's all around connecting in with our energy systems. So as an acupuncturist, I work with this incredible life force that we have within us, and I have created a 12 pathway program so that we can have a self-practice, because of course we can go to therapists to help and support our system, but I wanted to create something that allowed people to help support themselves. I think there's a really interesting part of that conversation. But so I have an online program, and I am just coming back to work with women in fertility in a different way. So I helped for years, helped women get pregnant. They wanted to have their babies much longed for, and I was an acupuncturist who would help support that journey. And now, due to part of my own journey, I'm looking to help women who are post childbearing age, or they've created their family, they may have created their business, and they're now looking to create the life for themselves. You know, and there's a whole thing for women about what we do when we do, how we give to others. And actually at some point we come and we say, right, okay, what about me?
What about me? What about me?
Yeah, and I would love for that to be earlier in women's lives, but I'm here to support women on their fertility journey to create their life.
Because how beautiful is that?
Yes, and it's really beautiful. So that is what I do, and it's a very tentative in terms of I'm coming back into the new season of my life and creating joy and a life in a much different way with a very different focus. Because of course, since I knew I was coming to speak with you, I've been thinking about joy. And it's really interesting for me to go back to a time when my partner had children, and I met them when they were 1 and 2. sorry, I should say my ex-partner now, but his children were 1 and 2 when I met them. And the laughter that we had and the joy that we shared, I think there's nothing more magical than being around young children when they're in full play and there's a real lightness to their joy. And I can get really caught up in the idea that I'm quite serious. Now I'm a more mature woman. And actually what brings me joy are still the same things, but it sort of feels different. I mean, what is joy and what does it feel like? So my joy comes mainly from being in nature, being with people, in conversation, in connection, celebrating and seeing people shine. Just that moment of spontaneous laughter or being held in a space with others. I think I can get equal joy actually on my own and with others. Watching a beautiful sunrise, I think I would sum it up as being in the moment and having time for the moment. And there was another bit to your question, and I'm not sure if I've answered it or if I've got it. So
yeah, what brings you joy and how do you create joy? Because what brings you joy can be something, but like creating it is so magical. I think when we are aware how we create joy, then we can create joy if we need it.
Yes.
So we're like self-sufficient, you know.
Yes. Okay.
So we're not relying on circumstances. Of course, it's easier when the circumstances are brilliant, but if not, you just, when you know how you create joy for yourself, I think that's such a powerful thing.
Isn't it? Gosh. And so if I were to think about that, I think the joy for me comes, creating joy is around creating space. And from that, I mean, there's a space that you create to take all the shoulds, all the noise, all the everything that gets piled onto us, and we have that moment connection with ourselves is bringing the joy. Because the disappointment for me from my journey in my 20s, say, was about looking for joy outside of myself. And the reality is the joy comes from within. Yeah, and certainly in terms of my mental health journey, there was an awful lot of, in my 20s, I had a lot of sadness and depression, and there were, of course, there were moments of joy in that, but it's almost like I gave my joy away to other people. So as I am in the moment, I think I can create joy just in remembering who I am and how blessed I am in terms of I'm privileged, and I want to say blessed more than privileged, and that I get to choose. And that is most definitely the part of how I create joy. Choosing and consciously choosing every moment. Because the lack of joy is at the points when we don't feel connected to ourselves, in my opinion. There we go. So,
yeah, and it's surrounded by people or all alone. It's the same. It's not the same, but it's the same, because you can be alone and feel so lonely and desperate, and there is no joy in that. But like creating the space for you to be alone, but in a very nourishing, beautiful way, then it's like, oh, that's such a good moment.
Isn't it? Oh, it really is. And I think there's nothing more heartbreaking than being surrounded by people and feeling lonely.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah.
But also there, I think you can create a space for being like safe, or even having joy in a surrounding where you feel like, I'm not so connected. But then I suggest just leave. If it's work, run. Yes. If it's a party, go home.
Yes.
But is it an age thing that we overstep our own feelings and intuition and boundaries when we're younger, and then when we're older we don't give a fuck and just go home? Or what is it?
Well, that's an interesting question. So for me, Oh, I'm not sure. I think because it feels as if I've done an awful lot of work to get here. So there were key parts for me which I knew, and I've always been quite joyful. And from a 5-element acupuncture point of view, I'm a fire type, which is about joy. So I'm either in joy or lack of joy. So, and there's a very distinct difference in that. What happened for me was when I hit 30 and I discovered acupuncture as a profession, I went to study, and it really gave me purpose. And that brought me huge amounts of joy and that sense of self. I felt I had a sense of purpose. So my depression, it was a really different experience for me. Once I was on my path, my soul path, then I was absolutely in a beautiful place of I knew that I brought, I was doing something that was worthwhile, and it brought me a lot of joy. And it also brought people immense joy, because more often than not, people would have their babies, which is so important for people. I think there's a whole thing around fertility I could talk about, but the pain of that. But also, if people weren't going to be able to have children, the work that we did led them to a place where they felt okay with their choice, that they were able to move on with a life without children. And there, of course, there was sadness around that, but it wasn't there wasn't a doom and gloom about that. There was the heartbreak, but then there's the moving on into joy. So does it mean that I want to go to that idea of that we have an age thing and we stop being joyful? Because I was really, really surprised at 47, so 17 years in, living with the man that I adored, having a business that was fantastic and not only served me and my patients, but also many, many other people. I mean, we'd treat thousands of people a month, and the business was growing, doing well. But then there was something in me that shifted and changed. And joy, I was looking for something different. And so there was a really different energy in that. There wasn't an energy of depression or not loving myself, which had been my experience in my 20s, but there was that real searching for something more. It coincided with menopause, my partner's children sort of growing up and empty nesting, and we had a different responsibility within the parenting. So that part of going, and what's next? What's for me? Because I think we, as women particularly, but actually I think this is shifting and changing for men, we dedicate our lives in the early years to making sure everyone else is okay. And at some point, it shifted for me. I knew that I didn't want to help people have babies anymore. And that was a really turmoil thing, because I thought it brings so much joy. And why was it not bringing me the same level of joy? So that was a really interesting time. So, which is what led me off to go and adventure. And then, of course, my soul spoke to me and went, what my soul wants to find joy is adventure. It wants spontaneity. It wants that part of not to have a diary. That, I called my adventure No Plans or Expectations. It was that real going back to adventuring, not knowing where I was going to sleep at night, other than in my motorhome. I didn't know where I was going to park up. I didn't have anything in my diary that I needed to do at any time. I just went from 15, years of running back-to-back appointments. I'd have 40 appointments a week, seeing people. It brought me joy, but at some point I just went, I want something different. I wanted that freedom, that it was like an unraveling, and there's real joy in, it scares the shit out of most people, actually. If I talk to people, and I would say I was going off traveling, they'd be like, oh, that's amazing. I really, really want to do that. And their eyes would tell me, you're absolutely crazy. Why would you want to go and do that? You know,
you leave a business which is successful.
Well, and thankfully, because I did try to sell my business, but for whatever reason, it wasn't happening. And I tried for, good 2-3 years to sell it. And up until last year, I was trying to sell it. But I've had a journey with my business as well. I mean, I had an amazing team who were able to carry it through. So it carried on growing whilst I wasn't there, which is actually the definition of a business. As a business owner, you have a business that works without you, grows without you, so but just it was like the tentacles of going, where am I going to go? My soul absolutely craved that freedom, and I love that now. I have to sort of build courage, but I know that I want to go exploring. I know that being in that real diary system of same thing day in, day out doesn't feed my soul. And of course, there are things that I do that I want to do that. But I felt such joy and relief in it when I came off the Euro tunnel in my van and I turned right and I had no idea. I just was going to find a spot to park and gather myself. And just the tears of relief, I felt like I'd been let out of a cage somehow. And that doesn't mean to say that I didn't love my business or the man who I'd loved for 20 plus years. It was for me.
And I think that's the beauty of change. We don't have to stay where we are, even though, and it's even better when we leave out of just a choice and not running away from something or because it was bad. I mean, I was teaching for 12 years. I loved it. I loved my students. I loved the team. I loved the place the school was. I didn't love the testing, and the teaching, and then you have to memorize it, and then you have to pass a test, and I have to mark the test. That was the worst thing.
Yeah.
But I just closed this chapter of my life with a smile and a do you say that in English too? A crying and a laughing eye? In German, there is this expression: if you leave somewhere like happy to go somewhere else, but you're sad that it's over. Mm-hmm. So it's a very positive state to be in when you change your life. And
isn't it? Really is. I'm wondering if there is a particular thing. I can't think of a particular expression, but certainly in that moving on, and there's a real skill in it. I don't feel I'm particularly skilled at letting go of things easily. I hold on for way too long. And maybe that's part of my creating joy and my choices. Now I'm making more conscious choices and I have the space to do that. Then I'm thinking through and I'm able to leave or move on sooner. I'm not too sure. And that maybe is something about age. I really want to go back to what you said earlier about whether or not it's an age thing. And I think there's certainly an appreciation as we get older that a whole load of the stuff we used to worry about doesn't matter. We give less fucks. Definitely. Yeah. And that's not to say that it's disrespectful of other people's feelings, thoughts and feelings, but I just don't believe that we hold ourselves in that pain anymore. Or I certainly don't. So I think I've gone off track a bit now.
No, not at all.
Bring me back on track. Come on.
Not at all. I just was thinking, if you just stay on the wrong track for your soul, you get ill or have a burnout. That's really, and I don't want to be offensive to anybody who had a burnout, but if you're really honest to yourself. You just went into the wrong direction with the wrong intention, or for too long. With the teaching, I would have loved to stop a year earlier.
Yeah.
Because it was like, like the last bit was like, I don't want to go anymore, but I wanted to finish up, the class and just do it right for me, that it's like a round thing to go then. But yeah, I think we have to be careful with the signs and the ideas and the messages we get from our body and our soul. Like, I don't want to go there anymore, like a little toddler tantrum thing. And
fantastic.
We better listen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We should. And I think, so my mum was diagnosed with cancer in 2016. And I can remember before her diagnosis, so in March, I went on some training and I was tired and ill. And I knew at that point I needed a break. So in 2016, I didn't go on my travels till 2018. So I had 2 years of looking for ways out. I mean, Tony and I at that time were trying to sell the house to downsize so that we could create more financial freedom for us to have some exploration, and so that we didn't have to work full time. So we were planning that, but in that process, as it unraveled, as it took that time, we were both paddling upstream, knowing we wanted to shift it and change it. And but on reflection, it all works out in the best possible way. It just does. We're ready. And I want to go back to that idea of burnout, because I really resisted. I still resist. I will not put myself in the burnout category, because I think it's an overused word that people will talk about burnout and think they can fix it in a weekend. They can go and have a spa day or a week's holiday. But actually, at the point of burnout, it takes months, if not years, to fully restore your energy into balance. And here I am. I thought I'd have 6 months off. It took me 2 years to be at the stage where I wanted to come back into work. And I would still say that I didn't have burnout, even though I used to do a 90-hour week. And
we don't need a title for that. And it's overuse or a trendy word for saying I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Yes.
But there are so many layers. I mean,
aren't there?
Yes.
There really, really are. And I would say, I want to go just back to that idea of, there was a part, so in my 20s, I was on and off antidepressants. So I had very little self-confidence. Although I would appear quite confident, I would have a real internal voice that would say I was, wasn't doing my best, or I wasn't good enough, or whatever. And it was the finding my soul purpose in the fertility work that really strengthened me and gave me that real place of knowing that I was contributing to the world in a positive way. And that's not to say that the work I did with families with children at risk wasn't good before, but at that point when I knew I was on my soul's path, and it was just like everything just slotted in and just went, this is what I'm here to do. That is such a joyful place. And I think so many people make do, because society tells us, and I know it's different in the UK, that we need to have a house, that we need to have, we need to own this, we need to have the car, we need to have the marriage, whatever it is. And there is something about it's pure bliss when you are in your soul's purpose.
Do you have any advice for somebody who thinks now, I don't know what my soul's first purpose is, and it sounds nice, but how can I find it, please?
Well, yes, because I've just been trying to do that for the last 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is that I've been in this part of knowing that bit was done. I'm going this now. Okay, how do we do this? The bit that I want to say is we take the noise out. That's what it is. It's about being in, how do I say that? Because it can be walking in nature, it can be doing meditation, it can be journaling, it can be whatever it is. But it's having time, removing the shoulds and having time with peace with yourself, I think. Which sounds really simple, but it's not. It's that, well, it can be. I mean, or maybe it's the other bit of having the courage just to trust your instincts, just to really trust yourself. I think, that education system that, or even the society that tells us we need to do A, B, C, and D, acupuncture wasn't anywhere in my vocabulary when I was growing up. I didn't know much about it. I knew I wanted to be in a caring profession. But had I taken that journey of nursing, which I wanted to do at 18 and got rejected from the school, then I would have been in a very fixed career. I might have had lots of progression within it, but I wouldn't have become the businesswoman that I am. I wouldn't have been able to invest in people. I wouldn't have had the freedom to create my life in the way that I have. But it takes removing the noise and learning to trust yourself. That's
how do I do that?
Oh, okay. So we strip away the layers of conditioning. That's what we do. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
But if we look at it and we look at young people, if you look at young children, they have sheer joy being in the present moment. They, and they're determined with their getting up. So when they're learning to walk, they fall down, they get back up again. And we have these skills within us, and yet we numb them. So we numb them with alcohol, with busy, with drugs, with social media, with all sorts of things. So it's that finding peace, finding connection, and even just starting with the little gratitude, noticing the bits in your day that you choose. And we're always making choices, from the food we put in our body, to the people we spend time with, to the books we read, to the, places we visit. It's little bits, and everyone thinks that there's this huge moment when it descends upon us and we go, hooray, we've had. It isn't. It's that coming into, and always, I think, just, I was going to say challenging ourselves, but taking a moment just to try new things. I don't know. I'm interested. How did you find your purpose? Ooh.
Yeah, that's so funny. I know so many people, they did first one business and then they evolved in the real thing. And I studied food engineering, so I was always interested in machines and technical processes, but also food, like the grown vegetables. You can do funny things then afterwards in the factory. And then I started producing salad dressing, Japanese salad dressing, for a Japanese restaurant owner. And he asked me, would you please produce my salad dressing professionally? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I don't know anything after university, but I can try to find a way from A to B to C to D. And that was a lot of fun to organize the whole production and scale up the recipe, that it still tastes the same as in the restaurant, and so on. And then people ask me, like, what do I have to take care of when I'm in Japan? What is important? What can I say or don't say? Or just questions about Japan. And because I met my husband 20 years ago in Japan, and I did an internship there for my studies. That's why I went for half a year. And I learned Japanese very quickly, and I just felt so at home in Japan. And I'm so in love with this country since I'm a child. So I always wanted to go to Japan. It had nothing to do. I didn't plan for finding me the best husband ever.
Congratulations, though.
That was destiny. So, yeah, I think when people ask you how can you help me with this and that, you find like the Japan business just grew out of that. And then I did events, and then I did they asked me, we want to learn Japanese. So I learned everything about online business because of an ebook I wanted to write. And then I built this Japanese course. And I really realized how much I love this online work. I love to learn myself online because I don't have to go anywhere. I can do it whenever I want. I can watch a video as many times as I want. I don't have to take notes like a maniac, or the teacher is just like clearing out the notes already. I'm like, hey, I'm not done yet. So I love this online learning, and I produced this Japanese course, and it was so much fun and so much joy. And yeah, like during that time, I felt like the calling of joyful living. Like when people, that was when I was commuting to the school in the morning, very early, like after 6 o'clock in the morning in the tram, in this little train in Zurich. People were, everybody was like this, not yet on the smartphone, like with the newspaper. And I thought, well, you look like you get killed at the main station down there. What's wrong with us? We are living in paradise. I mean, Switzerland is beautiful. We are so spoiled and blessed, but mostly spoiled. If the train is running late for 1 minute, we're so upset. Yeah, they're late again. Like, come on. And then I felt really the calling of doing something for having more joy. And as I told you in other conversations, my friends started to die when I was 17. And I think really the moment where I decided I go all in with my life to just do whatever I want was when my sister's best friend died. Yes. When she was 25 because of a heart attack. That was like, oh wow, now I'm done with doing anything for anybody just because I have to or should do, like kick out the shoulds and the let's do it. I have to do it quickly, or just the things which are not exciting. Yes. And then I started with I had a really cool coaching I booked for myself. And I thought I needed coaching, degree and do that Swiss style. We need papers with stamps and looking important to feel the proof that I can do something. Yes. And this American coach just told me, no, come on, just set up a program and look what's happening and evolve from there and learn and grow. So yeah, and then the joy business was parallel, and then I felt like with your business, like it's over, I'm done. Yeah. And now it's on my German website, it's still there, but like in the corner. And my goal is that my assistant, who built up a beautiful platform with a Japanese immersion kind of learning, that you just read Japanese and listen to Japanese, and then you can switch to the English page or the German page. They built up this business with my Japanese friend and another Japanese friend here in Switzerland. So my goal is to give my course to them when they're ready, and then maybe I get a share from every sale. But at the moment, the Japan business is dead because of Corona. Nobody's traveling. Nobody. It's like the joy business pushed me over the edge. Like no Japanese money coming in, so you better get into. Yes. And then the podcast came out of this, and a lot of beautiful, beautiful things.
And isn't it? And there's that part of, we're even talking about the business and the soul purpose work, there's that, you've always struck me as somebody who embraces joy in such a way, embraces life, I think, and joy couldn't be a better word for you, I think. and this brings me joy, seeing people really shine in what it is that they do. Patricia with her feng shui is absolutely in her zone of just brilliance. And I think, and it also is allowed to morph and grow and shift and change. So I have literally only in the last couple of weeks come back to that idea that fertility work for women beyond childbearing is my work. And I feel like I've come full circle, because I've just come back. I've gone off, had a little explore, and I've come back into the place. And there is something really beautiful about when we fit in our bodies. If we're talking about soul purpose, then it's the part when we're in our bodies and we're not looking externally for validation, I think, is we know it in our hearts. And part of the fertility work, part of that soul expression for me, is when our heart and womb are connected. So, and this is my work then. So this is absolutely my work of, we find our soul purpose when we are, I'm going to use the word aligned, and I think it's completely overused.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful word. It's a
really, really, really is.
Word. And it's aligned. It makes so much sense.
Doesn't it? And so for me, when we are aligned, we have in Chinese medicine, or in acupuncture, we have a meridian pathway that runs from our perineum all the way up the front of our body to just at our chin, and it's called the conception vessel. And we have a governor vessel, which is, so the front's the yin, the back is the yang. And that runs from the base of the spine all the way up over the top of the head to sit in the front of the thing. When our energy is flowing in beautiful rhythm, when everything is connected, we're connected heaven and earth, sun and moon within. So we have this, it's connecting and in alignment, body, mind, spirit. And of course, everyday life comes in and takes us off track a little bit. But if we are in line with ourselves, with nature, with the heaven and earth within us, but also the heaven and earth outside of us, then that is the most beautiful state of being. And that's actually what my energetic self-success system is about bringing people into their own alignment, not in a way of just mind work, because we need to be in alignment, body, mind, spirit. And of course, my way isn't the only way for people, because we're each on our own journey. But having that connection with ourselves and knowing, making the choice to be, is what brings us joy. You made a choice at 17 to have joy in your life, to live each moment in that moment to be the best it can be. And that doesn't, I'm guessing that, well, it doesn't mean that you don't get sad or you're not grief or you don't get angry or frustrated or whatever, but you're choosing to override or choosing to feel the feeling and let it go, I would imagine, so that you can come back to joy.
Absolutely. And within this state, it can be a very boring, normal day, but it doesn't matter. You know, you have this travel gene and you want to go places. I like to go to Japan. Like to go to the mountains, and I like to get to see the sea, but like not every year. Like I'm not this travel-y, the travel soul. I totally get it when you have it, but at the moment it's a lot easier if you don't, or if you're not like, I need to go away. But like getting to know yourself better and better, what you need for being joyful and in this balance. Also, like having time for yourself, even if you have little kids, how do you create this time for yourself? How do you fill your cup? As you know yourself better and better, you can get into this flow state on purpose, and then you're free. Then you're like, again, not relying on circumstances.
Yes. It makes me think of Nelson Mandela and how for all the years that he was in his cell and remained free in his body, mind and spirit.
Yes.
And it wouldn't
That's a
have
real,
just been
real accomplishment. Like if you have a beautiful, happy life, it's just so easy.
Yes. And it is a choice. And I'm really mindful when I say that actually there are so many people who live in different experience. As a white, privileged, middle-class white woman, I have huge privilege. And part of my mental health struggle was the disconnect between knowing that I was privileged and still feeling unhappy or uncertain of myself or whatever. And there were reasons for that. And I don't want to deny myself my journey on that. But in the same way that, we need to recognize that actually I live in fear as a woman walking down the street, in terms of how being approached and disrespected by majorly men. That's been my experience as growing up as a woman. But equally, I haven't lived in a violent home as a child. My parents were together and loved each other. They provided for me. I think I want to be really mindful. It's not as simple as, you make a decision. It can be as simple as you make a decision, but I'm really aware for everyone who listens that we each have our own unique individual story. And part of that is coming to acceptance and being and finding the joy, I think, in the simple things in life. So how many people in lockdown have discovered outdoors? I think just going and spending, and it doesn't have to be long, but 20 minutes on grass, on the earth, connecting with the earth that has this incredible life force, and being in that moment, not thinking about the 100 things on your to-do list. But if you're anything like me, you create a to-do list and put things you've already done on so you can cross them off just for the sheer satisfaction. But being present in that moment and noticing, and my travel can be, my best moments can be 2 minutes down the road. I'm living by a river at the moment, or it can be on a mountaintops space for me. And knowing where we decompress. What I want to say though around that is, because I hear a lot of women with children who will stay up late because they want some time on their own. So when they're doing things at 1 o'clock in the morning, because it's the only time they get to themselves. And so there's a real part of me that wants to encourage women to ask themselves sooner what it is that they want, and then get really good at asking for what it is that they want. Because I think that if I were to go and say anything to my younger self, it would be to say that what I want matters and that it's okay for me to ask for what I want. I may not always get what I want, but at least start that dialogue.
Mika was just this morning, she was eating or just sipping her milk, and she said, "Can I have my favorite spoon?" And I said, "Well, I gave you she doesn't like our silver spoons, the cutlery from my grandparents. So I gave her already a different one." And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, "No, ask for what you want and here you go." Like, why shouldn't we have our favorite spoon for breakfast? Really? And I really think these little, not important at all moments are so freaking important to feel like, oh yeah, I can ask, and maybe some other morning we're in a rush or whatever, like,
Mm-hmm.
can you please just take this spoon, whatever. But
Yes.
yeah, asking for what you want. I told her, if you ask for what you want, the probability to get it is just so much higher. So let's ask for what we want.
Yeah, and isn't that just acknowledging in that part of when we have space in our lives, it's much easier to hear those requests and hear the requests from within, I think, and it's unlearning and relearning how we can start asking. And I feel really hopeful for our younger generations, because I think there's such movement and change in just the confidence within younger women today. Yeah, and it's a dichotomy, isn't it? I'm not sure that's the right word, but because we have such serious mental health issues in young people today, and yet there are beautiful examples of parents who are absolutely having those different relationships with their children, who are able to have that space around the school time. I mean, I didn't do it, so, and I was never perfect. I'd be up at 6:30 in the morning, out the door, rushing out, and didn't have time to listen to my partner at the time. And if it is how it is, but giving myself time and the people I really love about the time to have those conversations, to ask those questions, and just to sit and be in that gestation of ideas, really, and hearing what people want is really important, without ego, because of course that's the other part, that if we're not in alignment, connected and whole and joyful, if we haven't got that self-love, then we are putting our own insecurities into our relationships with everyone, and there's a real, I don't know if it's age but there's a real beauty in knowing that I'm okay. I have never felt as loved as I have in the last 3 years.
Wow.
It's beautiful. And I include my ex in that. He and I have the most beautiful friendship now. I absolutely feel we're family to each other. So there's real love. And I have that with my friendships, with my family, with him, I really, really feel loved and appreciated. And I don't know, I'm not sure if that comes because it comes from me first. That's probably
the big trick and the big curse to say,
isn't it?
Do I really have to love myself first?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And making choices for ourselves. And that can be as simple as how we like our tea. And let's face it, I'm British, so we're really, really good at, stiff upper lip and not, what's the word? Yeah, saying excuse me or sorry, apologizing for things that are just, not helpful.
I just had a friend over for a visit, and she's from the Netherlands, but she lives in Wales for many years now. Mm-hmm. And I offered her, I don't know what, and then she said, "Are you okay?" And that's just, she explained me in the UK, you have to ask 3 times. Mm-hmm. And say no 3 times. And then if you say yes for the 4th time or the 3rd time, then it means really that you want to do that. And I said, okay, let's just, if I offer you something, you say yes, you get it. We don't do these steps. And Swiss people are like that too, I think, like, or in the earlier days, like my grandparents, that was like the kind of thing. If you go over to a friend's house, you don't say yes if you're invited to dinner, you say no 3 times. And then if they still insist, like, oh, life is so complicated if we have these rules.
Yeah. Whereas actually, if we're doing honest communication with ourselves and it's okay for us to ask what we want and say no to the things that we don't want, then we're unleashing ourselves from, a really restrictive life. And then if I put my acupuncture head on, there is such insidious restriction will create imbalance in the body. And over time, that builds up and it creates real disharmony within our bodies, our organs, our bodies, that just everything. And it restricts our life. It restricts us, and it will minimize our life expectancy. It will. I mean, I'm reading The Way of Heaven again, which is a beautiful Chinese classic around how we live and the seasons we live through. And this idea of actually when we live in balance with nature and in line with nature, then we have 100-year span. That's our, that's our span in good health. There's none of that, by 70, 80, you're struggling to do A, B, C, and D, that we have this beauty. And it's only by putting pressures on our body and not living in line with our seasons that we, struggle and become ill. And I'm guessing, I mean, your grandparents, is it, have that beautiful space in the mountains?
My grandfather bought this.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I just think if you look at that as the beauty of a natural life, walking, being out in the fresh air, having to provide very simply for yourself. There isn't all that. We think we're out looking for things we can get, and it's the simplicity that is, and living in harmony with our body and in line with our purpose, that brings us joy. Yes, how amazing to have a business that supports you financially and does however many figures, but that isn't the bit that brings you joy. And I know that because I have a multi-six-figure business and it didn't continue to bring me joy.
Yeah, but you listened, you pulled the brake and you went on your adventure. I remember your social media posts like, look at her. So cool.
Yeah, with Miss Gertie. Yeah, absolutely. And it was finding, and I continue to do it. And I think that's the other part of it, isn't it? We can get really caught up in, this is my forever. I want to do this for forever. And actually, we don't. We're forever moving and shifting and changing. Circumstances change. So it's the permission giving, isn't it? We can ask for what we want and we can say no to things that we don't want.
And we can stop caring what other people think of us, because somebody will find you weird or inappropriate or...
Absolutely. And let's hope so. My mum used to say to me, if everybody likes you, then there's something not quite right. Yeah, and I couldn't get that, because as a fire type in Chinese medicine, what people think about me really, really matters to me. So I can notice if people give me a particular look or something, I can go from up here, giddy joy, and plummet into, I used to, I don't now, because I would attach so much to what people were thinking about me into my state of being and whether or not I was lovable enough or good enough, or and that shift and change when I'm noticing what do I notice about it. And actually the people, I'm surrounded by people who love me and I love them equally, and it's the best feeling. Really, really is. And we make choices.
And then when you are, as you said in the beginning, like creating space brings you joy, like if you are in a space where you chose your friends wisely and you have a good relationship with your family, you run into beautiful people wherever you go, because you just attract the right people. Do you know this? we need to wrap it up more beautifully, but I like this saying, if you meet only assholes the whole day, or like over weeks, only assholes around you, maybe you're an asshole, like
fantastic.
It's so simple. But when I'm grumpy, for sure there is like a grumpy line in supermarket, or somebody bumps into me and yells at me like, and I can't say. If I'm grumpy, that's really like, oh no, it's such an unfortunate state to be in.
Mirror.
It's totally okay, and I can be grumpy or sad or angry, but you're like a magnet in the world. It's just
it really is, and I think there is that part, isn't there, of just having that and joy. Because I think of joy and I think of that giddy laughter and that squealing when you're blowing bubbles. One of my most beautiful memories is the children used to love that play. So when they first went in the sea and when they were blowing bubbles, and we just have this really spontaneous thing. But of course, we also need the quiet time. And there is equally as much joy and perfection in that moment. And it's when we choose. So we're not staying. Balance and harmony comes when we allow that flow to happen. And that's, for me, what brings us joy and balance and harmony. And just, it's a beautiful thing to explore, isn't it? I mean, this, for me, is joy.
For me too. And you kind of said your message to the world already. That's like how I like to finish up a conversation. What is your message to the whole wide world? Because it's possible that the whole wide world watches this video or listens to our episode.
So I would just invite people to come back to themselves. To really learn to trust yourself, because you are your greatest teacher, advocate, and know that you're constantly making choices. The little choices are the ones that matter. That's how you find your soul purpose. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Katy, for this
beautiful
conversation. It was so nice to connect. Online, that's why it's possible, because of thank you internet, but I would love to see you in real life again. It's 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I think.
6 years, I believe. Yes. So yes, we can make that happen because we're making choices.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
So thank you.
Have a beautiful day, and we'll connect.
Yes. Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I hope this episode inspired you big time to take care of yourself and to create joy for yourself in your everyday life, because the everyday life is just the biggest part of our life. So let's have a good one, and let's create joy and have fun and also have a lot of energy. And for that, I have a gift for you. The Golden Bubble Meditation is such a great, easy, simple meditation where you fill yourself with golden energy, and you can download it on joyismycompass.com/golden bubble meditation. joyismycompass.com/golden bubble meditation, and just download it and try it. It's so good for feeling energized, fully tanked with golden energy, and also protected from the outside if you need that. It's really, really impressing what our mind can create. Our feelings change, and as our feeling changes and we feel safe and protected and, as I said, energized, the surrounding and the circumstances can change just because you feel amazing and content and safe, and you will recognize the difference. And I'm very curious how the meditation works for you. Please tell me. I'm super happy if you reach out to me and tell me about your experience. Have fun on joyismycompass.com/golden bubble meditation. I'm happy to hear from you. Have a great, great day or evening wherever you are in the world. Love you. Bye bye.